why even design a cohort scale for, DE&I versus, traditional training? Why did you do a cohort versus an online course?
So how do you go at scale but still create the cohort? You do that because you want people to experience an intimacy of conversation and connection with the topic that doesn't make it impersonal, like so many large, big things that we all throw out there on our LMSs, and we ask everyone to go experience. Like, I think the second piece, as again was suggested, is this is a place where people across the spectrum want to talk. And it goes to this concept of safety. It goes to this concept of connection that was shown before. Nevertheless, the reasons are clear. And if you want an effective DEI experience that's going to resonate and stay, I think cohort is, I think in some ways, from my perspective, it's almost a no-brainer.
How did you design your programs for social and peer interactions? And how did you go about incorporating the learn, reflect, and apply principles?
Yeah, I just want to point out, Robert, to highlight what you said, because there's interesting chat around the quiet individual, the introvert. But something that I think we kind of overlooked in the previous slide was that there is a body of knowledge that exists within these cohorts. And you won't be able to tap that if you're providing some sort of asynchronous sheep dip, to Julian's point. And it's just, we see that often with clients in not just DE&I, but all programs where there is this institutional knowledge that you have, and it's just essential to really foster that and engage it and tap into it. So it's an excellent point, Robert.
I appreciate what Ira wrote about creating a space of safety and belonging so that everyone can share. And we've been talking some about the quieter people, and these may be people who see themselves as less important for whatever reason, right? And so it's interesting to think about, how do we, first of all, encourage and invite their participation, but also how do we convey and how we ourselves express ourselves in the interactions in a way in which they can feel they are equally important, that we don't overassert our importance. That's always been something I try to look in the mirror on before I get started.
How did you provide a sense of safety and belonging?
So we kept the cohort size relatively small. So it was usually between 20 and 25. And one of the reasons we did that is to really make sure that we thought a smaller group would do a lot more to promote conversation and create those safer spaces that we talk about both here and in the chat, right? Sometimes as the group gets bigger, it gets a lot more intimidating to share, right? Sometimes dominant personalities come out, everybody else recedes. We didn't want that, right? So we kept it small for a reason. And as far as the kind of the connections and the act of sharing, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but the technology's come such a long way recently that we're able to do a lot more with connection, with sharing, with socialization, with digitally, that we weren't able to do even 2 to 3 years ago.
There's two ways I've seen cohort size and selection. So for tactful disruption, we actually interview each person. So we'll open up maybe 25, 15 slots. We're only taking 6 or 8 people. We're looking for key themes, key insights about like some of the ways they respond, so that when we put them in the group, at the third session, we have them exchange phone numbers. It's up to them to decide how much they want to disclose with each other at that point, but there is foundational information that they have to go through. So they go through the psychosocial stages of development, like common questions around trust versus mistrust, intimacy versus isolation. While those don't seem at the surface like DEI topics, they truly are, because it's about what you value, right? And so if you've grown up valuing your isolation versus intimacy, you're gonna have a very different approach to how you have the conversation.